Hey, good evening, everybody. Dr. Thompson here with Exemplify Health Center, your Wellness Way affiliate, right here in Yorkville, Illinois. Happy Monday. Guys, I realized today is Halloween, and a lot of people are going to be trick-or-treating tonight, so I decided to go a little bit early. Hope you guys don't mind, and if you don't catch it live, you can always catch the replay. And guys, if you are watching right now, make sure that you say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. And in addition to that, if you have joined the No Sugar Challenge, go ahead and let me know if you have joined that by putting in a green heart. Joining the No Sugar Challenge that's going to be kicking off tomorrow. Let me go ahead and hide this. There we go. Go ahead and put a green heart if you have joined the No Sugar Challenge that's going to be kicking off tomorrow. Tomorrow's the first day, November 1st. We didn't start it on October 31st because, let's be honest, there's not a lot of people that want to start no sugar when they could be enjoying all their Halloween candy. Although, for me, I'm not going to be enjoying any. All right. All right, guys. Today, what I want to go over with you is what's the deal with gluten-free? I know it's gaining a lot of traction. And I'm going to show you 3 reasons why it is very important to avoid gluten-free from an actual scientific perspective. No, it's not a fad, although many people might be following it or going gluten-free only because of, well, I heard that it's good. I don't know why, but other people seem to be doing that. Before we go into what's the deal with gluten-free, guys, just a couple of things. I know that we've had a lot of people reach out. Our No Sugar Challenge starts tomorrow. You will see how to join the group, the Facebook group, in the description of this video. All you got to do is just go and click that, ask to join the group, and then we will be doing final approvals for the No Sugar Challenge tonight. After about 10 o'clock, we are cutting it off. No more people can join because a lot of people maybe wanting to join it halfway through, but you have to join it by tonight. Final approval at 10 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. So that way we are all starting this together. Dr. Nate, what is the No Sugar Challenge? You'll have to join the group in order to figure that out. We have all of the different things, criteria that we want to be doing for the next basically 23 days leading up to Thanksgiving. And if you don't want to do it, you can just join the group and then just leave. We have about 200 people that are in it. And so final call to be able to join that No Sugar Challenge. I know it's going to be a pretty awesome experience for a lot of you. I can't wait to do that also with you. I will do that with you as well. So guys, I'll be suffering a little bit through this whole entire process as well. And guys, coming up a week from tomorrow, November 8th, will be our year-end Approach to Inflammation talk. This is an in-person event, November 8th, 6 o'clock p.m. right here at Exemplify Health Center. All you have to do is go to the top of Exemplify Health Center's page. Also, if you're watching on Dr. Nathan Thompson, you go to the page, top of the page, and click the link in order to register yourself on Eventbrite for our Approach to Inflammation. Guys, if you don't handle inflammation first, everything that you're doing after that is really, you're just kind of chasing your tail. So whether it comes to weight loss, resistance, cancer, infertility, thyroid disease, arthritis, type 2 diabetes, any kind of autoimmune condition, any kind of hormone issues, guys, the first and foremost thing that you have to address is actually inflammation. And it's actually all of these other issues that you see going on is the body trying to adapt to an inflammatory process, which is in fact actually involving the immune system. I want you guys to know the only reason why you get sick is because of physical, mental, and chemical stressors. That's the reason why. And so once you understand those 3 stressors, you can start the process of actually stop getting manipulated by more medications and start restoring to your body to the natural condition, which is actually health. So I want to talk to you guys about that. Make sure you get registered for that. But let's talk about the deal with gluten-free. All right. Now, let me say this is that gluten-free food does not necessarily mean that it's healthy for you. All right. Because a lot of you maybe tonight might be enjoying a lot of gluten-free snacks like this. So this is considered gluten-free, Mountain Dew and Swedish Fish, a gluten-free food. And also, guys, very low in fat. And if it's very low in fat, it also means it's going to be high in sugar. So guys, Just because it says that it's gluten-free doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be good for you, because these are filled with all kinds of sugar, because inflammation and what's involving your insulin levels are very important when it comes to your nutrition, but also things like dyes, artificial colorings, things like bromine that can be in Mountain Dew that can interfere with thyroid function. So you'll see, guys, just because it's gluten-free doesn't necessarily mean that it's healthy. And a lot of people say I eat gluten-free, but they also will eat a lot of junk food as well. Okay. Now, gluten-free, the whole idea probably got a lot of traction 15 to 20 years ago. Interesting enough, we're starting to get a lot of traction. And I'll go over the second reason why you should be avoiding gluten. It has to do with Roundup. So you will see an increase in specific inflammatory conditions right around the time where they started to introduce Roundup, which is the commercial name for glyphosate, which is an herbicide. Now, guys, this has gotten enough traction that even some of the big medical groups, a lot of medical organizations have actually addressed this. And Mayo Clinic has addressed this as well. So those for you who love to go to the Mayo Clinic and get your diagnosis, now you can rest assured that Mayo Clinic has actually talked about this. So Mayo Clinic talks about a gluten-free diet. And so basically what they say is this, is to follow a gluten-free diet, you must avoid wheat and some other grains while choosing substitutes to provide nutrients for a healthy diet. So a gluten-free diet is an eating plan that excludes foods that are containing gluten. Gluten is a protein that's found in wheat, barley, rye, triticale, and a cross between wheat and rye. Okay. So a gluten-free diet is essential to managing signs and symptoms, now listen to this, of celiac disease and other medical conditions associated with gluten. A gluten-free diet is also popular among people who haven't been diagnosed with gluten-related medical conditions. The claimed benefits of the diet are improved health, weight loss, and increased energy, but more research is needed. Now, let me talk to you about, because when people say, oh, why are you going gluten-free? Do you have celiac disease? Guys, celiac disease is basically a really massive inflammatory reaction that's happening around the gastrointestinal barrier. Okay. And there's a lot of different other conditions that will describe what's happening at the gastrointestinal barrier. And they'll call it some level of autoimmune disease, as if the body is attacking itself. Remember, the body does not attack itself. The immune system is not programmed to attack itself. And any doctor or any natural health provider that even mentions the word the body attacks itself as if it messes up, those are people that I would never want to follow. I wouldn't follow those people because they're coming from the same perspective that actually made you sick. Okay. And so gluten, if you have enough of it and it can cause celiac disease, maybe it can cause some level of disease clear across the board, yet it is subclinical, or maybe the doctor hasn't looked for it actually yet. So what Mayo Clinic continues to say is they say the allowed fresh foods, what can you have on a gluten-free diet? Well, you can have fruits and vegetables, beans, seeds, legumes, and nuts in their natural unprocessed forms, eggs, lean, non-processed meats, fish and poultry, and most low-fat dairy products. Now, if you even want to get deeper into this, yes, we do teach that people should be gluten-free, but then there's also other things that you need to factor in, like your insulin levels and the fact that you may have a food allergy, even to these specific foods. Dr. Nate, what do you mean about food allergies? Well, I'm going to show you how Mayo Clinic actually is considering to be testing for this as well. And so the other allowed grains are things like amaranth, arrowroot, buckwheat, corn. I'll show you why you should be avoiding this as well. Flax, rice, soy, corn, potato, and bean flours, millet, quinoa, rice, including wild rice, sorghum, soy, tapioca, and teff. Grains not allowed are going to be wheat, barley, rye, and then triticale, a cross between wheat and rye, and oats in some cases. That's interesting. I'll go into this a little bit further. Okay. I want you also to know this is, even though when you're saying I'm gluten-free and I'm going to be avoiding wheat, I'm going to be avoiding maybe oats, I'm going to be avoiding barley, I'm going to be avoiding rye. I'm going to be avoiding those things. I want you guys to notice is that a lot of where you're getting wheat gluten is also going to be in processed foods. That's why you should be actually become a great label reader. And in fact, I tell people if you are reading the labels of foods, maybe you should consider eating more foods that don't contain any kind of label. Guys, label reading, you have to almost need a scientific degree now because they'll change the labeling on the food once people catch on to that specific foods and the ingredients aren't necessarily going to be good for you. If you don't believe me, go ahead and look at the number of different names that monosodium glutamate has. And you're going to notice they just changed the name. It's a different name so that you don't actually recognize it anymore. So it can be monosodium glutamate. It can be yeast extract. It can also be known as natural flavor. So there's a lot of different things that they will rename it as, but there's also a lot of wheat gluten in processed foods that you wouldn't necessarily right off the bat say there's probably wheat gluten in this, okay? Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about is the actual sub-protein of gluten, which is gliadin, okay? Now, if you actually look at the protein structure of gliadin, and guys, what a protein is, it's a long chain of amino acids. One of the things, guys, when you are talking about the immune system, especially when it's involved in digestion, is you have to realize is that the body is supposed to absorb amino acids and not absorb proteins. Once you have these long chains of amino acids known as proteins, then what happens is the body will identify that as a foreign invader, no different than if you saw a virus that was wrapped in a protein, or if you look at a bacteria, that has a membrane that has specific proteins that are on it. The goal of your immune system is to identify foreign versus self. And that's why if you have a lot of food allergies, the immune system is going to go to town around the gastrointestinal barrier and produce an inflammatory response. Now, I actually think that gluten is kind of like what opens the drawbridge within the gastrointestinal barrier that will allow other proteins to be able to leak through to cause even more inflammatory reactions. So if you look at the structure of gliadin, one of the things that you're going to notice is this right here, this red region is cytotoxic by inducing apoptosis or cell death of your cells. The yellow region right here is known as a super antigen that produces an exaggerated immune system response. The blue region actually triggers zonulin secretion, signaling the release of the tight junctions. Guys, and zonulin actually is what holds your junctions together between the cells within the small intestine. And then the green region causes the release of specific interleukins, which are inflammatory mediators. So you see what this subprotein of gluten, what does it do? Kills off cells, is an antigen in and of itself, it opens up the GI barriers, and then also triggers an inflammatory response. So looking at this, I don't know, I'm not super excited in order to be having gluten just based on the structure of it and what it actually does. So I want to go over with you guys 3 reasons why I think it's a great idea to avoid gluten. Guys, if you're watching this and enjoying this, please make sure that you watch this video because I personally believe everyone can benefit from going gluten-free. And I'm going to show you right now 3 reasons why. And number 1 is because eating gluten will increase your intestinal permeability. Now, I want you guys to know your gut barrier is not like an impenetrable castle wall, although we've made some references to that just for the sake of understanding the barriers and the immune system. But I want you guys to understand it is like a castle wall, but within that, there are drawbridges that do allow certain things to be able to pass through. So the first thing, though, that it will do is that it will increase gastrointestinal permeability, which is not something necessarily that you want to do. I'll always go back to this too, guys. When you look at a baby before age 1, they are born with basically a permeable barrier in their gastrointestinal system. They do not have these tight junctions that are formed. And the reason why is so that they can allow the proteins coming from mom to be able to go through. And so that's why, guys, if you want to see an inflammatory response in a baby, and what can happen further down the road in adults is give a baby a bunch of wheat and rice cereal, give them a bunch of food before that gastrointestinal barrier is able to actually start to seal up and start to work correctly. Then, because that's why you see so many kids who will have problems with gastrointestinal bloating that will result in colic. That's why you will see issues with their skin as well. And a lot of it has to do with feeding a baby stuff way too early before those junctions are able to start to seal back up. Now, this actually comes from PubMed, Gastroenterology, 2008. Here's what they said. Gliadin induces an increase in intestinal permeability and zonulin release by binding the chemokine receptor CXCR3. Basically, what they say from this is that CXCR3 expression was elevated in active celiac disease, but it returned to baseline levels following an implementation of a gluten-free diet. Okay, gliadin increased zonulin release and intestinal permeability. Okay, zonulin is in between these tight junctions between the cells. So basically, what does gluten do? It causes the gastrointestinal barrier to start to open up. It gets bad enough, they're going to diagnose it as having celiac disease. But guys, if this is happening, and it's happening at a massive level in certain people, it would be safe to assume that it's happening maybe in lower levels in people as well. And so they have actually demonstrated this in people with celiac disease, how actually is causing a leaky gut. But then with the removal of gliadin, they saw that those chemicals started to return back to normal. Okay. Now, Dr. Nate, what on earth is leaky gut? Well, I'm going to show you right now, because if we took your small intestine and we cut it down and we were looking through the tube of the small intestine, one of the things that you will see is you will see a single layer that's separating internal versus external environment. And within these cells, if you would look at them, these are known as tight junctions. Okay. So tight junctions. And so you see that these junctions are very tight together, which you want to have food that passes, but gets broken down enough that can get passed through the single layer of the small intestine. But what happens is specific microorganisms like E. coli, for example, specific toxins, wheat gluten, for example. So you have these different things, and what they can do is they can trigger the opening with zonulin of these tight junctions that allows the toxins, the wheat gluten microorganisms, to actually pass not through the cells, but around the barrier. And now when that happens, it will be exposed to the immune system. When it gets exposed to the immune system, then you have to have an inflammatory response, which means it will keep inflaming the barrier. It can become very systemic, which is why when these areas undergo a lot of chronic inflammation, you will see that these specific villi within the small intestine that help to increase surface area within the small intestine for nutrient absorption, the inflammatory process will just start to bowl them over. You will actually start to have less surface area for absorption of nutrients, which is why you can have things like nutrient malabsorption, inflammatory responses. You will have a release of B and T cells around the area, which is how you develop food allergies in and of itself, and immune system issues, chronic systemic inflammation, and then ultimately getting bad enough will lead to autoimmunity. Guys, I love it when people will say, oh yeah, food allergies just means that you've been exposed to it. It's not a big deal. Well, let me tell you something. Your immune system is not supposed to see food proteins. And so, yes, it means you've been exposed to it, but why did you get exposed to it? It means two things. I didn't break down my food well enough in the stomach with enough stomach acid, which 99% of people are deficient in having enough stomach acid because of stress, because of how they eat. But also, too, is that these large proteins were able to bypass the gastrointestinal barrier, and now you need an immune system reaction to it. And yes, you will start to produce antibodies through your B lymphocytes, specifically within that area. Okay, so it is triggering it is triggering inflammation. It's triggering food allergies, and it can also lead to systemic inflammation, leading to autoimmunity. Now, when people want to argue, oh, what about food allergies? It's not a big deal. Well, even Mayo Clinic it says maybe we should start to consider this, because Mayo Clinic actually did not too long ago, about 6 years ago. They said food, they call it sensitivities, it's an allergy, may affect gut barrier function. Interesting, right? The things that we've been talking about for years, now Mayo Clinic actually they want to start looking into it. So the result is, if you are eating gliadin, the subprotein of gluten, you're going to result in inflammation, you're going to result in food allergies, and then yes, it can even result in autoimmunity. So anyone who has any kind of autoimmune reaction that's taking place, you do want to look at food allergies, you do want to look at gluten. Although there can be other things that are involved, it's not just wheat gluten, but it's a good start for a lot of people, particularly when when you are talking about when you are talking specifically like for thyroid issues and things like that. Okay. So number two, second reason why you need to avoid gluten is because of glyphosate. Okay. So glyphosate, what is it, Dr. Nate? It is the active ingredient within Roundup, okay? Go look into your garage. You probably might have some Roundup that you are spraying around the yard in order to kill weeds. It actually will kill everything, including grass. So it kills everything. But the thing is that they will put it on things like corn and soybeans. And when they say they're genetically modified, it means that they are Roundup resistant. So it means they can put a chemical on them and it won't kill them off. So this is going to be on corn. This is going to be on soybeans as well. But what it's also used for is a drying agent in order to quickly have the wheat dry out after it is matured. So after the wheat, full grown, matured, then what they'll do is spray it with Roundup that will kill it off very quickly. And so this is why you're seeing the heaviest concentration actually in wheat, because there is not, it is sprayed directly on the grain. And it's also used in oats, which is why wheat and oats are going to be the highest glyphosate load as well. So it just so happens that, yes, it's now we're not talking about the gluten as much as we are talking about what glyphosate has been sprayed on, which tends to be in the highest concentration when it comes to wheat. This is why I talked about this in my book, Transformation 28, about 4 or 5 years ago. And you look at the number of people who are having issues with wheat. And yes, it's important to avoid gluten because of what it does to the gastrointestinal barrier. But so many people now are responding even more. And maybe, just maybe, it has to be because they're consuming a poison. You mean, Dr. Nate, that glyphosate is a poison? Yes, it is a poison. Who says so? Well, the scientists actually do. So if you look at PubMed again, the environmental and health effects of the herbicide glyphosate, here's what they said. In 2015, the World Health Organization reclassified glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans. Okay. There's animal data raising the possibility of health effects associated with chronic ultra low doses related to accumulation of these compounds in the environment. This is why people say, oh, it's such a small dose. Well, guys, I want you to realize, yeah, maybe it is a small dose, but look at the number of grains that's in the standard typical American diet. And so now you're getting a huge Roundup load, glyphosate load. But think about where we also have other toxic exposures, guys. And there is a point where your liver cannot keep up anymore, which is why we are seeing so many illnesses, chronic illnesses of toxicity. Now, this actually comes from 2013. Glyphosate pathways to modern disease, celiac, sprue, and gluten intolerance. So let me read this article for you. Celiac disease, and more generally, gluten intolerance, is a growing problem worldwide, but especially in North America and Europe, where an estimated 5% of the population now suffers from it. Symptoms include nausea, diarrhea, skin rashes, macrocytic anemia, and depression. Look at the number of the symptoms associated with celiac disease, and look at just the number of people that have these issues almost every single day. So we're seeing that glyphosate, the active ingredient in herbicides Roundup, is the most important causal factor in this epidemic. Characteristics of celiac disease point to impairment in many cytochrome 450 P450 enzymes, which are involved with detoxifying environmental toxins, specifically in the liver, and also activating vitamin D3, catabolizing vitamin A, maintaining bile acid production, and sulfate supplies to the gut. Okay. Glyphosate is known to inhibit cytochrome P450 enzymes. Deficiencies in iron, cobalt, copper, and other rare metals associated with celiac disease can be attributed to glyphosate's strong ability to chelate these elements. So deficiency in tryptophan, tyrosine, methionine, and selenomethionine associated with celiac disease match glyphosate's known depletion of these amino acids. Celiac disease patients have an increased risk to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Interesting, because you actually have a class action lawsuit against the makers of Roundup for the increase in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which has been implicated in glyphosate exposure. Reproductive issues associated with celiac disease, such as infertility, miscarriages, birth defects, can be explained by glyphosate. Look at the number of people who are having problems conceiving. Glyphosate residues in wheat and other crops are likely increasing recently due to the growing practice of crop desiccation just prior to harvest, in which they do in wheat specifically. We argue that the practice of ripening sugarcane with glyphosate, which is also done in Central America, may explain the recent surge in kidney failure among agricultural workers in Central America. So when you look at that, guys, remember, what does science do? Science says, let's look at this with an open mind. Let's look at this without any financial interests. Let's look at this completely by not having any kind of leanings towards one thing or the other. But you're going to notice the people who actually take this article and try to tear it apart, you're going to notice is that they actually have a huge financial tie in perpetuating the use of glyphosate, because they're financially tied to specific agriculture to keep using it. Okay. Now, PubMed also says disruption of cytochrome P450 enzymes in the liver and small intestine in chicken embryos in ovo exposed to glyphosate. Okay. So when they see these and they look at chicken embryos, they're looking at how it's disrupting this classification, this family of the P450 enzymes, which, guys, most of them are in the liver. They're also in the small intestine. These family of enzymes are involved in hormone conversion. They are also involved in the elimination of toxins, so detoxification. And I know that we'll always have specific people who will say, oh, well, this was actually done on chicken, so it doesn't count. Well, let me tell you something, because if you say that, you're probably the same person that's getting the COVID booster vaccine that was tested for safety on 8 mice. So, guys, you can't have it both ways. But when you look at this, you are seeing that it's disrupting these family of specific enzymes involved in hormone conversion and also detoxification. Take a look at this. When you look at this, glyphosate use in the United States, when you're looking at 1992, 1993, 94, look how it has exploded in 2012. And I would beg to argue that this has gone up over the last 10 years as well. Where is it actually being used? Well, you're actually are seeing it in agriculture. So these are the places that grow the most corn, soybeans, wheat, and oats. And this is where it is used. I would actually like to see the incidence of things like infertility. I would like to see the incidence of specific types of cancers and see if that has increased in the same exact amount of time based on the amount that's actually that's being sprayed on. What's interesting, if you look at the highest amounts, this is actually right around where I live. Is you can see in the highest amounts right around this area, more than 250,000 million pounds. Okay, or that's million pounds aggregate but this is when you look at the glyphosate use specifically in these counties, the highest use is actually right around where we are, because we are in the hotbed of corn and soybeans, not really wheat, but also a little bit of oats. Okay. So you can see that the use of it has gone up. The third thing that I want to talk about, so you have that it causes issues with the gastrointestinal barrier, causes inflammation, leaky gut, things like that. Number two, because of toxicity due to Roundup exposure. And then the third thing, guys, why avoiding gluten is always a good idea, has to do with insulin resistance. Okay. The reason why is, guys, Dr. Nate, what on earth is insulin resistance? This is exactly what your doctor is not measuring in you. They're measuring your blood sugar. Maybe they're measuring your A1C, but they are not measuring your insulin levels. Guys, if your doctor is just measuring your blood sugar or you're measuring just your A1C, they are missing a huge puzzle as far as if you are developing what is known as prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. You will see this before you see any kind of deviations in your blood sugars, or even better, in your A1C levels. And so why do grains cause insulin resistance? Well, the reason why is because most grains that you are consuming are actually considered processed grains, quickly absorbed in the intestines, quickly raise blood sugar, and cause a massive insulin dump from your pancreas. That then exposure to an increase in insulin will cause insulin resistance of the cells and an increase in fat deposition, which then in of itself will make you very inflamed. So PubMed also had a great article from 2013, about 9 years ago. They said gluten-free diet reduces adiposity or fat deposition, inflammation, and insulin resistance associated with the induction of these different things, you guys. Has to do with prediabetes. Okay. Here's what they said. Gluten exclusion, the protein complex present in many cereals, has been proposed as an option for the prevention of diseases other than celiac disease. So they're saying, well, what about insulin resistance? Is going gluten-free? Would that be beneficial? At this point, guys, I think that you could definitely say a resounding yes, just like I agree with this as well. And even you can go even a little bit further. What they said is our data supports the beneficial effects of gluten-free diets in reducing fat gain, inflammation, and insulin resistance. The data suggests that diet gluten exclusion should be tested as a new dietary approach to prevent the development of obesity and metabolic disorders. Guys, you know, it's always, they'll test one thing and then say, okay, well, here's our miracle diet. But guys, the reason why gluten-free, when it comes to being gluten-free, is that you are actually avoiding all of the grains that are largely in the United States a result of insulin resistance. So if you are avoiding being gluten-free, it's just one step that you need to take in order to start reducing your insulin levels. In fact, when I talk about nutrition, the first thing that we say is it must not be inflammatory. Number two, it should keep your insulin levels low. And then once you start doing that, then you can go into your macros, you can go into your micronutrients, and then you can go into and start talking about performance and nutrition. But if you do not first go anti-inflammatory and keep your insulin levels down, everything else is, guys, you may lose weight doing it, but you are still inflamed and you are still no healthier. Guys, look at this right here, okay? So this is the food industry, and this is how actually the USDA, even guys, a lot of nutritionists, why they have led you down a bad path. And I'll give you an example, is that any nutritionist that says, well, you know, grains are good or whole grains are good because they're filled with so many nutrients. And I'm like, you could get these nutrients easily from something else. And this is why even for some people, well, I say, hey, based on your test, I don't even want you to eat fruit. And some people absolutely just lose it. And the reason why they lose it is say, but fruit is good for you. And I'm like, listen, you could live your whole life without fruit based on there's other things that have just the same amount of nutrients that are in it. Guys, look at broccoli. Broccoli is high in vitamin C, all right? So But the reason why we'll say, hey, no fruit is just because of the amount of sugar and fructose that are in it, which can be hard on a liver that is already overburdened and has non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Why add any burden to the liver? Just look at from in 2011 to 2014, guys, and this is even getting worse because this was even 8 years ago. Look at these statistics of people who have pre-diabetes and diabetes. Guys, you are pre-diabetic if your A1C levels are 5.7 or higher. You're considered pre-diabetic or diabetic. So when you look at this, well over 50% of Black non-Hispanic people in the United States are considered adults 18 and over are considered pre-diabetic or diabetic. When you look at Asian non-Hispanic people in the United States, over 50% diabetic or pre-diabetic. You look at Hispanic approaching 50% pre-diabetic, diabetic. You look at white non-Hispanic, you are looking at about 40% of pre-diabetic or diabetic. So you guys look at everyone in the United States, you are looking between 40 and 50% of people that are considered type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic, meaning they are on their way of having a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. And guys, the management of it does not make a whole lot of sense because the management of it is to actually try to increase your insulin sensitivity, not by avoiding grains, not by avoiding sugar. Of course, they'll say, hey, you need to watch your diet, but they'll give no direction specifically on what they need to do. They'll never sit down with you for 30 minutes or an hour and go over exactly what you need to do or develop an eating plan. However, the first thing that they'll do would be a drug-based approach, which is going to go on metformin. So they'll give you metformin. Once that stops working, they'll give you another drug. Once that stops working, you may actually need to go on insulin because now you are a type 2 diabetic and now you are type 1 diabetic because your beta cells of your pancreas can't produce any more insulin because you literally have fatigued them to that point. So look at this, guys. This is eating the standard American diet. Another reason why we say, hey, go gluten-free, but some people even need to go further than that. Now, guys, I know that a lot of people will say, oh, Dr. Nate, it's way too expensive. It's way too expensive. And I say this, guys, you always get what you pay for. So when people go and they want to buy cheap supplements, you get what you pay for. If you want to buy cheap food, you will get what you pay for. And basically all you're doing is you're providing a down payment for the higher cost of healthcare later on. So if you want cheap food, you're going to have high cost of healthcare later on. And if you want to buy expensive food, you're going to have lower cost of healthcare. And one of the biggest travesties is that when we talk about healthcare in the United States, how it needs to be universal, basically I say, why would we want universal healthcare on a healthcare system that ultimately fails almost every single person as long as excluding crisis fire department type care? That's crisis care. When you talk about healthcare, we do not have a healthcare system in the United States. We have fire department care. That fire department care says this: we're going to give you basic tests that test for fires. We will not see you building disease. Once you build disease and it triggers it on our test that now you have a fire, we're going to give you a surgery or a medication approach. You will be on this medication for the rest of your life. There is no exit plan on how to be able to get off of medications. There's no exit plan on how to reduce your medications. And any doctor that doesn't want you to get off of medications or work towards that goal, you really need to find a new doctor because really all they are is just a sophisticated drug dealer, a well-educated drug dealer. So guys, when you say it's too expensive to eat healthy, the only thing is you're just buying yourself time. You're trading it in for more expensive and often failing healthcare down the road. But when people talk about universal healthcare coverage, I say, I'm not going to go into that healthcare system. Why would I want to pay for other people to eat cheap food, to get sick, and now I have to actually pay for that? So that goes into my rant as far as having universal healthcare coverage. Instead, guys, rather than subsidizing, which you'll see in the public school system, subsidizing cheap and gluten-riddled food that's leading to disease, maybe we should actually subsidize healthy foods, because for many kids, the only healthy food that they'll get will be at school. Maybe that's what we should be subsidizing. And if you don't want to eat healthy, you can bring your junk food from home, but we're not going to serve it in our school system that is contributing to kids' chronic illnesses, especially when you have literally 40 to 50% of people in the United States, and that's just from 8 years ago, who have pre-diabetes or diabetes. Because when does it start? It starts when adults are children. It doesn't pop up on you. It doesn't attack you. It's a slow building process, although now it's building a lot quicker because of the amount of processed sugars and grains that everyone is consuming, somehow thinking that they're getting away with it. Now, I remember I had an article we talked about glyphosate and gluten, and man, I got absolutely attacked and people tried to hammer me. And I said, look at these people, how they're commenting so emotionally to this article about glyphosate, how they said it was safe, there's no harm that's in it. And I looked and I found that the people who were staunchly defending it and attacking me were actually all from a agricultural group that was heavily invested in using Roundup for their financial gain in order to be able to produce a crop. Okay. Now, guys, I don't actually blame all of the farmers, because many times they're pigeonholed into that being their only option. But I want you guys to know something, because I see this as a pattern. In fact, I had a video on why I thought testosterone replacement therapy was a bad idea. You can go back on Facebook and watch that in our videos on Exemplify Health Center. You can go to our YouTube page at Dr. Nathan Thompson and watch this. And the thing is you will see that people become emotional when they realize what they're doing may not be the best way. And so what we do, guys, is that we will emotionally defend the things we are afraid of losing the most. And no, that's not a misspelling. That S is actually supposed to be there. And so this is why you will rarely see a doctor change their mind when it comes to prescribing medication. You will rarely see anyone who's financially invested in that. You'll rarely see them change their mind, because it means losing their livelihood. And so we'll emotionally defend those things until we don't have any financial interest in it, and then we'll start to tell the truth. So again, guys, I hope this makes a lot of sense for you when it comes to the 3 reasons why you should be going gluten-free. And some people, it should go even deeper than that. And guys, if you want to be a part of the No Sugar Channel challenge, just go to, in this post, the description of this post, you'll see a link to be able to join that. Final approval will be by 10 o'clock. After 10 o'clock tonight, we will not be allowing anyone else into that group. We have about 200 people right now. And so make sure that you ask to join the group. 10 o'clock will be the final approval for that. And you can go in, make sure that you watch the videos that we made regarding that. You will see some recipes, and you will also see foods to enjoy, foods to avoid, that we'll be doing over the next 3 weeks. And I believe 2 days leading into Thanksgiving. Do something, guys, that's going to move your health forward. Guys, there's no such thing as a flu season. A virus does not grow stronger. It doesn't develop a nefarious plan every fall because all of a sudden it decides that, okay, I guess now I enjoyed my summer and now I'm going to attack innocent people. Guys, it's called the cold and flu season because of what we do during this season. And it has to do with sunlight. It has to do with the amount of sugar that we are exposed to. It has to do with our stress levels. All those things lower the immune response and make you susceptible to not just the flu, but any virus for that matter. So get registered for the No Sugar Challenge. I'll be in that group going live almost every single day. And then finally, guys, if you are still watching this, thank you so much. And if you're from the Chicagoland area, make sure that you go register for our approach to inflammation, our last one on November 8th at 6 o'clock. That will be the last one that we will be doing for the year. Get registered for that. Understand inflammation, and this is your first step to becoming a patient in our office at Exemplify Health Center. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Please share this video if you did. Be well, be blessed. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and please don't eat so much Halloween candy. All right, guys, be well, and remember who you are.